In the 1920s, there were a lot of smaller things you might call a zoo that popped up around Houston at various places but never lasted very long. But when Herman Park was established, the idea was, let's bring a couple animals here. And the very first one was a bison named Earl. Earl was part of an early effort to restore bison to the West. They had been almost completely exterminated. Houston Zoo's history really tracks the history of the city. There were booms and busts, and obviously in the late 20s, early 30s, things were tough all over the country, and the zoo at that point had tough times. But we were still here, and so the story is, through good times and bad, the zoo has always been a solid piece of Houston. Many new exhibits were built in the 50s and into the 60s. There was a period of modern architecture, which we still see some of the buildings at the zoo reflect that. And so the zoo really did see its biggest period of growth until today. So the 70s was a time of big change in the country, and for many years, zoos were consumers of wildlife. We realized in the 70s that was not how zoos should operate in the future, and we have a responsibility to actually help save wildlife.
Some of our breeding programs that have gone over the years that have been particularly of interest is our Houston toad breeding program and our Atwater prairie chicken breeding program.
The zoo has been successfully breeding and reintroducing both of those species, and they would not be on planet Earth if it wasn't for the efforts of our predecessors back in the 70s that continues to this day. By the 1980s, zoos around the country had more and more needs. We were getting city support, but it wasn't enough to keep up with the maintenance needs of the zoo, much less the expansion and the new programs that modern zoos all need to sustain. So that was recognized by a large group of citizens and city leaders who came together and said, we want to have a great zoo in Houston, and the best way to do that is to do a partnership. A study that was done indicated that yes, with this new management structure, the continued support from the city, Houston was interested in, willing to, and now certainly has supported a world-class zoo. That happened in 2002. And then since that time, we've gone into our amazing Centennial campaign and built several more and are in the process of building even more world-class exhibits. None of that would have happened without the privatization.
When I first started here, we were asked, what are you doing to save animals in the wild? And our answer was, we're breeding these animals, but we weren't really focused on what was actually going on in the wild. And our conservation department started to change and started to grow in all of us here at the zoo. Today, it's more global.
It was more about building something with someone in the other country and believing in what they were doing, but equally, them understanding what the zoo was doing. So our partners become extended family that give us very strong messages about why the zoo needs to be here, what it does to save wildlife, and that's so important today.
It's a big world out there, and so we've reached out and found ways to partner with organizations and individuals in countries all over the world in this conservation effort.
As locals, as nationals, we are in a better position to make a difference for the species protection. Our target is really to come up with homegrown solution to save threatened wildlife and wild places in Rwanda.
The most effective work is always done by the people that are from those countries. So we love to leverage the leaders that are within the country, and we have seen incredible success.
Over the last 7 years, we've been working hard to reverse the decline in the gray-crowned cranes, but also like really working hard to inspire Rwandans to bring back that kind of love and the pride that people always had in their species. Say, hey, cranes are in danger, and we are Rwandans, they're our species, so we need to do something about it. The mission of the Houston Zoo, it's so aligned with the work we do, believing in us and saying the vision and what we can do. We feel like empowered and belong to the family, and to know that there are people there willing to support you, not only financially, but like emotionally and professionally. It's really a great asset that we have, and feel we are in this together.
The zoo is really created by the people of Houston for the people of Houston. So if you look back into our history, it was really built by many people who contributed to make this zoo happen. And so it really is Houston Zoo.
The McGovern Foundation and Dr. McGovern and Catherine McGovern have been probably the zoo's greatest patrons over time.
Dr. McGovern is one of the most brilliant people I've ever been around. Ms. McGovern is very loving, very caring, would take a personal interest in the children that would benefit from the facilities that we assisted with. But together, they were remarkable people.
There is no benefactor, no lover of the zoo more than Mrs. McGovern. They have been all in with their generosity, with their kindness, and with their spirit and love of the zoo, especially part of this Centennial campaign, where they made a lead gift of $50 million to help us transform the zoo.
I did legal work for Dr. McGovern for 36 years. And one day, he asked me out of the blue, he said, so what are you and your family doing this weekend? And I said, well, my daughter actually wants to go to the zoo Sunday afternoon. He says, you know that bench that's located outside the pygmy hippopotamus exhibit at the zoo? He said, that's where I go to when we go to the zoo. Kathy spends all of her time checking on our animals. And I sit on that bench and I watch the children come in. And he said, you know, those children, there's nothing but pure joy. And then he said, you know, I think that's the way our Maker intended it to be. That was many, many years ago, but the rest is history.
There are many ways to leave a legacy, but this one is going to impact children and generations to come. When I meet Mrs. McGovern, every time, she is salt of the earth. She is a joy and a treasure, and she's done so much for Houston, but for the zoo in particular, we can't thank her enough. So Kathy, thank you so much for everything that you've done, and congratulations to all of us here at the Houston Zoo for our 100th birthday.
The zoo would not be what it is today without the generosity of you and Dr. McGovern and everything that you've done to make our dream a reality.
Kathy, thank you so much for all that you do for the Houston Zoo. There is no one more fitting for this honor tonight, especially as we celebrate our 100th anniversary. Thank you for all that you do for our zoo and our community, and I am so lucky to call you a friend. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Kathy, on this honor, and happy 100th birthday for the Houston Zoo.